an hour of your time today, and you could be shopping or at the grocery store or at your computer or on the cell phone. And by the way, the cell phone, please leave it on, because if you get a text or a call, go ahead and answer it, and that way you're helping me take up an hour of time. I'm going to quote Friedrich Nietzsche, and we have art in order not to die. No, I'm sorry. We have art in order not to die of the truth. And I'd like to kind of go into that a little bit, because it took me a lot of time saying that, which the first time I got it wrong, but what does that mean? And for me, I figured out that there's a lot of truths in our lives that the media and everything in our daily lives is out there, and it's something that we can't get away from. It's there. And so art is a way of us getting away from ourselves and into something else, seeing something someone else has done and what they have figured out about their life and the chaos around them. And art for me is that truth, the truths that we have daily coming to us. Some are good, some are bad. And I think that if we didn't have the arts, all of the arts, I think we'd murder each other. I think it would be very difficult, to go into a major museum or a minor museum or a music hall or a play. Any of the arts, it just kind of takes you away from everything. It makes you feel better. It rejuvenates your spirit. And so that's what I got from that quote. I like it very much. Now, on to my work. I guess you could say there's a lot of chaos in some of these pieces, and it's my way of trying to figure out what's going on in my life. It's a way of rejuvenating my spirit and seeing the world around me, and I call these landscapes. They're some are very much a landscape. That one is titled landscape, and then the others kind of there is the nature side of our physical landscape. The big one down here is called machine-like. Well, that's probably more of a man-made landscape, and how we deal with machinery or the struggles and difficulties or loves and whatever. But that's what I see in these. And these four here are assemblages, and and what I do is I start. That was the first one I did, and I knew that there was some things that I wanted in it, and so I started out that way. And they're layered up. They're on wood panel. And they're quite heavy. And I paint and I route into the panel and do collage. There's a lot of cutouts in there from paper clippings. Some of them go back to 1940, some are recent. And then just start adding things. Like this one, this is a lobster buoy I got in Maine. And I thought that was really unique. I like discarded objects from our lives, found, and wood or whatever. And that kind of stimulated this piece, and it's called Sea of Debris, and it's just what's going on in the environment, in the ocean, and what we're doing to it. And I suppose I could even put more into that piece, but I had to stop. It just got too heavy. But this is a woman's shoe that I found in Baker's parking lot on Sannel Creek, beer can, so on and so forth. And the drawings are similar. They're mixed media drawings. They're built out the same way. I do marks on paper, collage, and then I come back in with oil paint, white, beige, and black is the last color, and I scrape back to what was behind it. And then there's some watercolor in them also. And I think they're abstract textures of our landscape. They're kind of telling a story. This one is called Off on Fire, and it's some of the catastrophes we have in the environment, fires and earthquakes and tsunamis, the stuff that comes up. This is kind of speaking to that. There's an artist that I admire, Louise Nelson. She's no longer alive, but she does these large sculptures, and they're all black, and that kind of is I guess from her work, that's part of that. And then the sticks are, the wood that burns, that's the fire. And then the red is the fire. And then the landscape is probably, if you were from an airplane looking down, and you would see all the way the land is cut up and divided up, and what we have done to the land in that sense. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's not anything that is bad or anything. It's, and that one, I started out knowing that I wanted to do this up here, and then everything else just got, and then this piece was in it, one of the first pieces. And also there's paint and there's some collage and so on and so forth. The wood in these, I tore down an old fence in our backyard, and I have a bunch of these pieces in my studio, and I just start cutting them up and adding them. And then someone gave me their old wood floor, and there's sheetrock in this one. And I like layering things and putting old with new, and dividing things. One side is a struggle, the other side is calm, stuff like that. And then this one, it has a lot of stuff in it that I would say this piece is a culmination of my last 3 series, which is compartments, stations, and arranged music. And it has pretty much all of that in this piece. There's a lot of piano parts and pipe organ pieces, old table, and this is like a floor grill. And this one, I started out knowing what I wanted, some things in it, and then just started working. And they just kind of take you along. They're like both of these large ones took quite a while to do. They just, and they're fun to do, they're fun to make. And I'd like to end with a statement of mine that's on my website, and I have to change glasses. I use materials of wood found, new, recycled, and discarded parts from my everyday life. Stories are told through the process and the object created. It is a way for me to understand my surroundings and to see nature through my art. Making objects is a way to marry chaos and structure. Both can exist at once. Architecture, the geometry of an exposed, decayed building, and the structure of the urban and rural landscape all interest me as an artist. So, thank you. And is there any questions? Yes? Well,
Your wife's probably crazy about your hoarding or something.
well, I work away from the house, so I can leave it just in a mess. It doesn't matter. Actually, the wood I bring up, they're planks, large planks, and I just cut them up into smaller pieces. And the tools used in all this are basically a bandsaw and a sander, a disc sander. And you know, when I started out, the pieces are right, you know, locally close. I do have to walk around to the bandsaw and then to the sander. And then, like on both of these, I would cut a piece and put a piece of tape on the back and then put it on the panel and then look at it to see if that's where I want it. And then maybe move it somewhere else. And if I like it there, then I glue it and pin it. But my studio is littered with this stuff, and I'm always, you know, looking around to see if I'm missing something that it should be. You know, they're like a sea of debris. I mean, you could almost put anything there because I'm sure it's in the ocean somewhere. So.
So you don't necessarily have your machine and computer part pile that maybe you pull a few things from, and then your trash debris pile you maybe pull things from and scatter together in your studio?
Yeah, because sometimes when you cut a piece, you know, you have a little bit left over. Well, I'll just throw it in a bucket. Or I will, if it's a bigger piece, then I'll set it down on a table that's here. So a lot of it's right here on the table to work from. Then I have like over here is some of the other stuff, more not wood pieces, but maybe, you know, like this, or the shoe, or the can. There's computer parts in this one and that one. This is a pipe from the innards of a pipe organ. This is a broken car mirror. In fact, coming here last night, I found a piece over here on the street I picked up. So, and I'm always looking. I probably walk like this. And I had a project I wanted to do, and this was a couple years ago, and I wanted to use old tires, shredded tires. And our highways are littered with them, if you can imagine. And so I had my pickup, and I drove from here to St. Joseph, Missouri, picking up tires. Truck tires, whatever, throwing them in the back of the truck. And I got a pretty good collection of them, and I brought them back to the studio. And I thought, well, I'd just take it to the bandsaw or something. Well, they're still belted. You cannot cut them. I mean, it's just horrendous. I'm sure there's a tool you could use, but I couldn't find it. So I abandoned that project and took all the tires out to the dump and got rid of them. And I had one that's probably this long in the back of the truck. And the guy looks in to see how much it would cost to dump it. He says, "Oh, you got a gator." I said, "A gator? What do you mean?" He says, "Yeah, that's what we call those, gators." And you look at it, and it does look like an alligator, you know, the tread and everything in it. And so I'm always looking at stuff and, you know, finding things. And then I'll set them down in the studio and forget about them. And when I do a piece, it'll come, oh, wait, there's that piece I remember, and go over and use it. But any other? Yes, Corey?
The piano key pieces, I know that's not part of your show, but what was your inspiration with that? What those being do?
Well, those things kind of found me. There's this building right here, white building. I think someone bought it and just fixed it up. I have lunch at Louis M's every once in a while, and I was there. And I drove around, and on the side of the building was all this castaway wood. And it looked pretty unique, so I stopped and I looked at it. And it had been sitting outside for quite a while, and I was like, what is that? And so I didn't take it at that time. So, and I came back maybe a couple weeks later to have lunch. still there. So I thought, yeah, I'm taking this stuff. That's really cool. And so I took them to the studio and didn't do anything with them. And I was in this group show, and it was called Into the Woods. And it had to be all wood product in it. And so I built this piece out of this stuff I found. And some of it was pipe pieces and insides of the pipe organ, which I don't know much about at that time. But anyway, then I was over here again, maybe a month later, and I noticed some really nice pieces of wood outside. So I stopped and thought, those are really unique. I didn't know what I would do with them, but I thought they were unique. And the guy comes out of the building, and I said, oh, can I have these? He says, oh yeah, sure, take whatever you want. Come on inside, I have lots more. So I go inside, and it's just full of pipe organ parts and pieces and keyboards. He says, take whatever you want. Well, come to find out, his father built and repaired pianos and pipe organs over here. And this was all the stuff that he had accumulated over the years, and he had passed away recently. And his son was just, getting rid of it. So I took those back and started making, I thought, well, it took a while before I processed through my brain what to do with them. And I realized that one day I just started cutting them up. I have a compound miner saw, and then putting them back together. And that was a real, it makes your brain think differently when you're cutting something. You're just not doing a 45 or a straight cut. Now you're cutting it this way and that way. And how does that go back together? So that was the process there of building these pieces. And finding the keyboards was just a real find, I think. I'd like to find some more. But those, I took them all apart and then put them back together in that way that you see it now. And so that show was at the Sunderland Gallery at St. Cecilia's. And it's quite a process to get into that gallery because there's so many people that looks at your work, and then Brother William is kind of the final say-so. And what was unique about the arranged music is that if St. Cecilia is a patron saint of music, and they have a huge organ in there that's real contemporary, and so he just thought, well, that's great. Sure, and that's kind of how that happened. But I worked for a furniture maker a long time ago, and that's all precise and everything. These pieces, are pretty precise. Now you get to this, and they're not so precise. But I like both areas. I'm just comfortable with this. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
This piece feels so nautical to me, with the debris that washes up.
Yeah.
I love how he lives along Lake Erie, and so it feels like things that I've seen when I've gone walking along the shore. But the shuttle down there, the weaver, that was a found object like that on the shore too?
Well,
or a found object somewhere?
Actually, that's a bought object.
Oh, what?
Bought. I bought it. I don't know, it wasn't very expensive, but what's it called? There's they have not antique shows, but it's up on Center Street. What is that called? Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, they have estate sales and things like that. And I bought another piece just the other day, a couple weeks ago, that was like $5, and I don't think that was much more than that. And I thought it was neat because it looks like a canoe. Yeah, and I didn't know what it was, and my wife. Yeah, my wife told me what it was, and.
I really enjoyed this piece, and then like the boat with the sailboat with the pillar, the post in the center there.
Yeah.
it just feels, it feels water, it's perfect water, an ocean.
Yeah.
It's a lake, a big lake.
I started here and worked my way down and around, and I tried to get that, you know, that like you're in the ocean. The buoy I got in Maine, as I told you, it cost $24. It costs $32 to ship it here. So, yeah, but everything else was free. You know, it didn't. And there's a beer can in it, and you know, a lot of these are piano parts. This is a key flipped over. A lot of the keys I found were missing the. I don't think it was real ivory, but on the side, the real side. So, any other questions?
I was just going to say, because I live by the water in the summertime, and my backyard looks like that a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because just it's by the Long Island Sound, and whenever there's, or just the high tide brings things in, but especially when the storms come in. Between
Yeah.
Green and Sandy, I had parts of houses, I could have given you lots of stuff. Yeah, there were parts of houses
I'll take it.
floating down, steps, and debris. I still haven't gotten rid of it, but one time there was a part of a deck floating down
Oh, really?
with the railing and the steps, and it landed, it just dug itself into my property. I didn't know how to dislodge it, and all of a sudden the high tide came up enough, and somebody was canoeing down there. He asked if he could have it. I said, yes. Because I mean, you could use it. So, I mean, my question to you, do you take contributions?
I do. I do. Just bring them here and dump them on the floor, and I'll come and get it. Yeah. Yeah. People I know say, "Hey, I've got a bunch of wood. Would you like it?" And most of the time I take it, not always, but I've got these tree branches. I think they're probably aspen and birch, from trees that probably grow in Wyoming more than here. We rented this space to this guy. It's been a number of years ago. We had a building, and he built beds out of wood, and they probably would be more popular in Wyoming or Montana, kind of that type of wood. They were really nice. And he ended up moving, and then in lieu of his last month's rent, I said, "Can I keep the wood?" He said, "Sure." So I've had this wood in my basement forever, for a long time. And I finally, I was thinking about this piece, and I thought, well, I should just go down to the basement. And sure enough, just started breaking sticks off and cutting them. And
Do you ever have an idea of a piece that you don't have material for, so you go out and look for these specific?
Yeah, that's a good
materials,
question.
Or is it something that you already have these materials, and then it kind of create a piece of materials that you already have?
yeah. I can't think of anything. I'm sure there is times when I wish I had something. Well, there is another project that I've put on the back burner. This one could actually happen, but my idea is to go into the countryside and these old barns that are falling down. Well, the tin that's on them, the patina is just incredible, the way they look. And going up to the farmer and saying, it won't cost you anything, but can I take, the tin, some of the wood, and I'll tear it down and haul it away. And I haven't done that, but that's the case where, I would have to go find something and then build these structures. There again, I think they could be a floor piece too, but they'd be also could be on the wall of the ripped and torn tin that comes from, and that has all that nice rusted patina and everything. And exposing maybe the innards of the framework of the architecture that was once there. But that's quite a job, and I don't have assistants, so I kind of have to do it on my own. I have two sons, though, that could help me gather that stuff.
You said this one, you started working sort of the upper line.
Yeah.
Sort of working around. I was wondering the others, if you had a pattern or a system how you worked, or if it's sort of random that you sit and five pieces, or do you start at one side or one corner or work around to it?
This one I did the blue up here first. I knew I was going to divide it. It's not quite in half. You're not supposed to divide pieces in, who cares if you do or not. But, so I started there, and then I started here, and came down, and then this was the last, because I knew this would be the most difficult to do. And this is a bush in the back of my studio. It's called red twig dogwood. And I was out there and looking around and I said, oh my gosh, that's, during the winter, no leaves on it. It's red, that's exactly what I need. So I started clipping those, and they're stuck in here. All the wood, the big wood pieces are nailed or pinned to the board. So it's, it's not going to go anywhere. But yeah, they like here, I started up here. On this one, I knew there were some pieces I wanted in it, and this being one, the piano keys, this piano keys cut off, some of this other stuff. So I just started putting those on, because I had in my mind what I wanted it to look like, and then maybe a way of getting there. But I didn't want it to stick to the square. This is 48 by 48, the panel, but the dimensions of this one is 55 by 52 by 9. And this one took a lot of thought, and I'd put something up with tape and then sit down and look at it for a while. Yes?
Did you create that central frame piece to begin with? Or is
Yes, that, I don't know why I created it. I can't remember what it was, but I had it hanging on the wall. And so I'm, sitting there looking at the piece, and I see this hanging on the wall. There's nothing in it, it's just white on white. So I did the same thing. I stuck it up there with tape and looked at it. And at that time, it was pure white. So it really came out. So I sanded it back to the natural wood to take some of the white off of it. And it's kind of like a frame within a frame. There was an artist I remember seeing in Kansas City who was very minimalist work, and he had frames, a bunch of them, all different sizes. Up on the wall, nothing in them, all the same color. The whole gallery was just full of them. And it's kind of an interesting look. I mean, it's, whoa, what's going on here? What's going on in his brain? But yes.
It sounds like you have a lot of memories from the objects that you found. I don't have a clear-cut question, but I'd just like to ask you to comment how those memories embedded in your pieces affect your work, or how you feel about the work. Something holds a bad memory or a good memory.
Oh, no. Well, I think it's, I've been fortunate enough to be able to travel around California and places, that's not like this, and or even here, but in seeing the environment or the landscape, and I guess building something like this has kind of taken me back to some of those visual sightings. I remember the beach in Mendocino was just, there's a bridge, I don't know if you've ever been there, but there's a bridge, it's high up, it goes over a river that comes into the ocean. And there's a beach here, and it was just littered with sticks. And seeing it from high up, it was like, wow, that's really neat. And then we went down and walked on it, but it's visually it was interesting. So, in a lot of the pieces, this is from Maine, I guess. And then that comes from the ocean. It's been real round. And this I found, I don't know exactly what it is. A piece of tin that had been run over.
We're the shoe at Walmart for
Right. Yeah, that was real recent. That was this summer sometime, I remember. Now, the beer can was probably outside the studio somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, some pieces hold, a memory to them. Like the wood fence, that I know where that came from. I guess sometimes when I started this and I started cutting it up, I, would recall our backyard when it was up, it was there, and things like that. I don't know about anything else. Any other questions, or? No? Yep, John.
Are these planned or just more spontaneous?
They're planned. I have an idea. I had an idea in my mind. Now, when they physically start the piece, I'm not sure where it's going to go or how, the outcome. Like this one I did, that one not so much. That one kind of took me along, and as this one did, I knew what the overlying context was going to be. And, I visually see in my mind what it's going to look like to some extent. But once I start them, then they kind of grow on their own. And that's a nice thing about art, I think, is some of the mistakes become really good part of it, good part of the piece. So
You plan pieces that may go into it, but not where they're going to reside.
plan the pieces.
So, I'm going to have this buoy in this piece,
Yeah,
but I'm not sure where.
I knew where. Oh, well, sort of knew where. In fact, when I first put it on, I didn't like it, so I moved it. It was basically, I moved it down. I had it too high, so I moved it down. And by the way, this is attached, the buoy is attached to a piece of wood behind it, which is screwed in from the back. And, I knew this wood would be in it. I didn't know this was going to be in it. I didn't know this was going to be in it. I knew the shoe probably would be in it. I knew that I wanted to, suggest a boat of some kind. And that's where I went to this table that I have a lot of stuff. And I was looking at stuff I didn't know. I saw this. I said, oh man, that's a boat. And on the bottom I'd written boat. For some time ago, I don't know when. Kind of jogged that old brain. And so I thought, perfect. Because I don't want, to have some huge ship up there, but just something that, pertains to a boat, But it's kind of fun. You go around in the studio, you see these things. Oh yeah, that would work good in there. And
Yeah, what is really nice about your work is that it's so thoughtful, and it's not just sort of slammed together. You can see how everything, like you planned it out, and you carved things where they could fit into it, so they become a continuous kind of thought. So I've seen work where people just throw things on and just attach and attach and attach. But these really put together like a puzzle.
yeah, that's another word I wanted to use. Yeah, in these is that they're kind of like a puzzle. I mean, it's like a free-form puzzle. It's not like out of a box or anything. But I like folk art, and created by people who don't have any background in art. That they're just making things, and there's some really neat things that are I think is high art, and that's pretty junky in a way.
Oh, I think with the Reverend Minister,
Yeah.
he's like big time.
Yeah, or Lonnie Holly or Thornton Dial, all from the South, and some of the things they do, and it's amazing. But
I don't know if you mentioned this, but how long did that one down that machine
That probably took a couple of months. No, I'm not working 8 hours a day, but
You're stopping, letting it,
once I get started, it's kind of hard to stop,
Right.
you know, once I start. But there's so many little pieces in that it just, and the process of putting the tape on and putting it on and looking at it, and, you know, I think 2 weeks ago before I brought it here, I put 2 pieces on it. I thought something's missing here, so I nailed them on, but everything's small enough that it doesn't, you know, you don't know. I mean, if it should be or not be there, but yes, sir.
A philosophical question, do you define art?
What's that? Can I define art? What is art? Boy, I think that's what everybody's been trying to do, isn't it? Trying to define it. I mean, you only can define it for yourself. You know, I make art, so I guess I'm kind of wrapped up in making it. I define it, I guess, as something that takes us to a different place. It makes us feel comfortable with ourselves, with our environment, with each other. Probably one of the things I like to do best is to go somewhere, New York or wherever, and go to the museum and just go through it and see what's there and what's someone else's interpretation of the same thing that's been done all the time and over. But we all interpret stuff differently. You know, Corey has his interpretation. Liska has yours, and so we're always interpreting, reinterpreting, and, you know, trying to define that. And I think it's a fleeting moment that what is art? You know, there's high art. I guess there's low art. There's no art. You know, I'm a visual person, so I like looking at things. I don't read a lot. I mean, I read a lot more publications than books, but when I read something, I tend to read nonfiction over fiction. And fiction, I guess it's hard for me to visualize what's going on. So I need to see it visually over reading. You know, plays, music, theater, film, that's all art too, so it's... Did that answer your question?
It gave me your ideas.
My ideas.
Yeah, it's just your ideas of what art is. It's not, I don't know that there can be a test question where you say, what is art?
Yeah.
And
Well,
correct answer.
yeah, that's the teacher in you, isn't it? You're asking these questions, yeah. Am I going to be graded now? If I am, I want the test back tomorrow. Not in 2 months.
I'll give it to you this afternoon.
All right, good deal. Well, thank you everyone for coming. And appreciate it.